Chapter 266, Escaping Outside of the Aggro Range. Chen Guo stopped looking over at Yi Shu's screen. She then turned her head and glanced at Tang Ru's screen. But the scene that she saw made her even more dumbstruck. These two people's circumstances were polar opposites. On Yi Shu's side, he carefully planned and didn't arouse even a single Sin City resident. But on Tang Ru's side, now that was a commotion. Her soft mist ran like mad the entire way. Her character glanced around every few seconds and Chen Guo already saw that there were at least 10 residents chasing after her already. Tang Ru's movements were truly extraordinary. In addition, she looked as if she would gather more. As she sprinted down the road, not a single resident that she passed by didn't notice her and added itself to the growing number of troops. Tang Ru didn't want to provoke them, either. It was just that their aggro range was just too large and they were just too aggressive. If she were here to level up, then that wouldn't be a bad thing and would actually be convenient for that purpose. But in her situation, avoiding these monsters' aggro required experience and awareness. It didn't matter how good her mechanics were. Tang Ru clearly wasn't at Yi Shu's level. She had only recently entered Sin City and she had already gathered up so many residents. In the beginning, Tang Ru had killed them off. But after killing a few, she saw that she wasn't getting much experience. It was a complete waste of time. As a result, she didn't want to keep wasting her time. But in front of these Sin City residents, they weren't going to just not fight you if you didn't want to fight. It wasn't that convenient. Chen Guo watched for a bit and felt that Tang Ru was in a lot of danger. She hated how she wasn't able to help her, so she hastily went to grab Yi Shu. Hey, don't pull. Don't pull. Yi Shu was currently attacking a Christmas thief. He was unable to withstand the drag and made a slip-up. Lord Grimm was hit by the thief's blade, which also disrupted Lord Grimm's combo. This Christmas thief was an actual thief class. After doing that, the thief rolled backwards and immediately began to wander off. Oh no, Chen Guo looked and also knew that the situation was bad. This was a commonly used tactic by thieves. They would wander off and place traps everywhere, restricting your movements. It seemed like the AI for these Christmas thieves were different than in the past. They moved as if they were real, like actual players. When a player accidentally set off an explosion, a spike, or a poison gas bomb, it was always a mood destroyer. A lot of players didn't lose to thieves in mechanics, but in their psychology. When affected players continued to fight in an imbalanced state of mind, their movements turned panicked and they would make more mistakes, causing them to lose. For people like Chen Guo, who were easily instigated, this sort of strategy was something that they feared intensely. Who knew how many times they had lost to thieves because of this? Seeing this situation, she accidentally put herself into the situation and panicked. She apologized for messing up Yi Shu. But it was a groundless fear. The Christmas thief put down the first trap and then sidestepped, ready to put down a second. But before he could do so, 3 anti-tank missiles fired at him. The Christmas thief had nowhere to run. The thief was hit directly and failed to set the trap. Lord Grimm rushed forward with his myriad manifestation umbrella in its battle lance form. He swung up with a sky strike, launching the thief into the air. The battle instantly returned to the original scene. The Christmas thief was stuck in Lord Grimm's combo and was unable to get out. Yi Shu continued to play, while asking, "What is it?" Chen Guo had been so worried that she had almost forgotten about Tang Ru's situation. She turned around and saw that Tang Ru's situation looked even worse now, so she replied hastily, "It's about little Tang. She's being chased by a lot of monsters." Yi Shu heard this and glanced over to Tang Ru's side. "I've told her how to escape the monster's line of sight before." Yi Shu didn't have hopes that Tang Ru had the ability to not alarm any residents like he was doing now. As a result, he reminded her of how to quickly escape from the monster's aggro. Escaping from their line of sight was one way to get rid of their aggro. Simply speaking, when you ran, you would turn more and wind around walls more. The aggro would quickly drop and the monsters would lose their line of sight and stop chasing. In Sin City's streets, running away in this way was very easy. She was doing it, but what? Whenever she escaped from old residents, she would always bump into new ones, aggroing them. Tang Ru was stuck in this type of loop. In addition, now that she had pulled so many of these residents, it was too late to turn back and fight them all. What are her coordinates? Yi Shu asked Chen Guo. Tang Ru was very focused and didn't know that the two of them were talking about her. Chen Guo checked, when she suddenly saw a figure in front of Tang Ru's character. A figure appeared on one of the rooftops. Tang Ru immediately focused on her. Chen Guo immediately recognized the equipment on the character, a launcher. It was the class she was most familiar with. It was a female launcher too, so her familiarity increased by 100%. The character's class was the same and the equipment were ones that she recognized, but there was one thing that was very different. This female launcher chose to have long hair that fluttered in the fine rain. The cannon in her hands lit up and flashed, shooting out a laser. The female launcher gently leapt backwards, utilizing the laser rifle's recoil. Tang Ru's camera followed the laser, which directly hit the dozen or so residents behind her. These monsters were only chasing her because she had entered their aggro range. Compared to that, an attack drew much more aggro from them. Simply speaking, the launcher created an OT and most of the residents switched their targets to the female launcher, except for the 3 or 4 that hadn't been hit by the laser. Oh, Chen Guo heard Tang Ru suddenly say. The female launcher had probably said a few words to her. Soon afterwards, more artillery shells were fired and those remaining residents were aggroed onto the female launcher. The dozen residents stopped chasing soft mist and began chasing after the launcher. But the female launcher had already disappeared. She had clearly jumped down onto a different street. She was escaping from the monster's line of sight. The residents climbed up the walls quickly though, which was something players couldn't do. The group of residents climbed over and onto the other street. Not longer after, the launcher jumped onto another rooftop and down onto a different street. After a few rounds of this, their aggro was wiped clean. The dozen residents stayed on the streets and were no longer interested in their escaped target. This type of method for getting rid of aggro was simple and effective. But unfortunately, Tang Ru was unable to use it. Mages didn't have high jumps and weren't able to jump onto the rooftops. Those that could had to use spikela moves. For example, the gunner had aerial fire. Witches could use their brooms to fly up. Assassins could double jump, etc. Battle mages could do it through equipment effects and skills, but currently, they weren't able to, yet. The launcher returned to the original street and walked towards soft mist. Thanks, Chen Guo heard Tang Ru say. She also saw the launcher's name, Cleansing Mist. You recognize her? Seeing that Tang Ru was no longer in danger, Chen Guo went to ask her. Yeah, she's Yi Shu's friend. She dungeons with us a lot. She seems really good? She is, Tang Ru said. Is she better than me? Chen Guo laughed. That, Tang Ru wasn't sure how to answer. What? You asked if she's better. She says, which means that she's better than you. Yi Shu couldn't but explain to Chen Guo. Chapter 267, Christmas Hunting Leaderboards. HMPH, Chen Guo wasn't as competitive as Tang Ru. It was only because the female character was playing the same class as she was, as well as her heroic entrance, which caught her eye, that she had jokingly asked such a question. In the end, Yi Shu seemed certain that that female launcher was better than she was, immediately making her depressed. She was completely capable of doing what that launcher had done, too. Why was that launcher better then? I think I'll try again. Tang Ru was clearly talking in-game. Su Mucheng had just happened to pass by when she noticed that Tang Ru was in trouble. The trouble was now solved, but if Tang Ru continued, she would most likely fall into the same situation again. As a result, Su Mucheng had suggested that the two party up. But Tang Ru wasn't so soft. The only reason why the situation had occurred was because she hadn't been prepared enough. She kept on aggroing them until she couldn't deal with them anymore. But now that she had a fresh start, Tang Ru felt like if she paid a bit more attention, then the situation shouldn't go as badly as before, which was why she had said to Su Mucheng that she wanted to try again by herself. Okay, that's fine, Su Mucheng said and sent a smiley face. Thus, the two split up and headed in opposite directions, one heading east and the other heading west. Tang Ru had soft mist run a few steps forward and stop. She stretched her neck towards Yi Shu's screen to steal his techniques. Yi Shu's progress was going smoothly. He quickly found another Christmas thief and, just like before, he aggroed it without disturbing any of the other residents. Yishu saw Tang Ru out of the corner of his eyes. He attacked the thief, while saying, "There's no point in looking. You won't be able to learn how to do what I'm doing in an instant." Why not? Tang Ru was pondering over the method Yishu had just used to avoid the monsters, when she heard Yishu talk to her. "Expert, you explain to her," Yishu said to Chen Guo. Chen Guo was speechless. Usually, when someone called her an expert, she'd become happy. But being called an expert by someone who was clearly better than she was made her feel as if she had been called a noob. Chen Guo glared at Yishu, while still giving Tang Ru an explanation. She told her that Yishu's methods didn't involve any special techniques, but it relied on experience and intuition, which could only be gained through time. This was something only experienced players possessed. Tang Ru heard this and could only nod her head. As a new player, she had no way of replicating that. Just how far apart were the monster and herself? Tang Ru looked 100 times, but couldn't tell. Since she had no way of copying Yishu, Tang Ru was forced to use her own clumsy method. If the monster seemed easy to avoid, then she'd simply go through without arousing the monster. If the monster didn't seem easy to avoid, she wouldn't risk it and would find somewhere else to go. She was basically just wandering around the city randomly. If there was nowhere to hide and no way of easily getting through, then her only choice would be to force her way through. Tang Ru relied on her own ability and struggled through Sin City. She found a few Christmas thieves on the way and killed them off conveniently. To her, fighting was a lot simpler than finding her way around the city. In the end, the saddest person was Chen Guo. She had luckily bumped into a Christmas thief at the beginning of the event, but ever since then, she hadn't encountered any others afterwards. Whenever she saw one, it was always taken away by someone else first. Chen Guo could only admire Tang Ru and Yishu as they killed Christmas thieves from time to time. The new server truly was better. For there to actually be Christmas thieves that no one was scrambling for. As for the heavenly domain, which Chen Guo's chasing haze resided in, there were crowds of players everywhere she went. The players' enthusiasm was too scary. If the heavenly domain was like this, then that meant that the older servers were also like this. In addition, the heavenly domain had its own server leaderboard. Points gained from the old server and points gained from the heavenly domain wouldn't be combined. Chen Guo had already decided that she would stick with the heavenly domain server. She didn't have the ambition to get onto the leaderboards. She just wanted to kill a few thieves and then earn some of the rewards. But 1 hour after the event began, poor Chen Guo was only able to kill 3 Christmas thieves. However, the rewards from catching 3 Christmas thieves was better than the gains one normally made in an hour. When max-leveled players turned in the stolen gifts from the thieves they had killed to Santa, the experience they gained would automatically be turned into money, in addition to a whole bunch of other rewards. But the ones who were truly excited were those on the system announcements. In the global chat, there would be messages about some players earning a rare reward. In order to get on TV, the rewards had to be a purple or higher ranked equipment, an uncommon material, a hidden dungeon map, a boss summoning scroll, an equipment enhancement scroll, or even skill books. All of these rewards were things that everyone wanted. It didn't even matter what the probability of getting those were, everyone rushed like ducks to try and grab one. Messages of joy, sobbing, bragging and cursing appeared in the global chat. It didn't matter since no one would give up on the event. Seeing how a few players were grumbling in grief about how they hadn't been able to kill a single thief, Chen Guo's 3 thieves looked quite promising. At the very least, her hour hadn't been wasted. But for these types of events, the scariest part about them was comparing your results with others. Compared to those crying players, Chen Guo was very lucky. However, compared to the 2 people beside her, Chen Guo really wanted to punch them. On her left, Tang Ru had killed 9 Christmas thieves in an hour. On her right, Yishu was even crazier. He had killed 14 Christmas thieves in an hour. Chen Guo wasn't even close to them. For her, every time she caught a Christmas thief, she would impatiently run to Santa and exchange it for a present. But their inventory had lots of stolen gifts in them, but it seemed as if they wouldn't go back until their inventories were full. Chen Guo was extremely sad. Fill up her inventory? That was only a dream for her. Yi Shu and Tang Ru focused on searching for Christmas thieves and hadn't paid any attention to the person that was between them, who had only killed 3 in an hour. Aside from searching for Christmas thieves, they had also paid attention to the leaderboard. The Christmas hunting leaderboards. Yi Shu's Lord Grimm was 261st place after an hour. As for Tang Ru's Soft Mist, she was quite far from Lord Grimm, at 784th place. The two were also able to see Su Mucheng's Cleansing Mist, which was at 319th place, way ahead of Tang Ru and fairly close to Yi Shu. But the biggest difference was that, while Lord Grimm and Cleansing Mist were still rising up in the leaderboard, Soft Mist was beginning to hover around the 800th mark. Clearly, at this ranking, she was killing off Christmas thieves at the same rate as those at the 800th mark. The competition was fierce, but Yi Shu's and Su Mucheng's skill levels truly were higher than everyone else's by a whole level. The leaderboards clearly showed their gap, but for Tang Ru, these rankings only fired up her spirit even up more. As soon as her name showed up on the leaderboards, she rushed up to the 800th mark. But after that, she was unable to move forward any further. This achievement hadn't come easy. She had been running around Sin City like crazy. In that hour, she had killed 9 Christmas thieves, but had also killed 18 Sin City residents. Those battles had consumed a lot of her time. The level 31 to 35 Christmas hunting leaderboard caught their attention, but they didn't pay too much attention to other leaderboards. For example, the hunting leaderboard for guilds. This leaderboard didn't distinguish between the different skill levels. It looked at the total number of points from all the players in the guild. Without a doubt, guilds with more members and higher-leveled members would have the advantage, but it also could be argued that this was a representation of the guild's strength. At this moment, the guild that placed first on the 10th server's Christmas Hunting Guild leaderboard wasn't Herb Garden, Blue Brook Guild or Tyrannical Ambition. Excellent Dynasty. Excellent Dynasty was impressively placed first by a large margin, too. The number 2 was Herb Garden, who was followed closely behind by Blue Brook Guild and Tyrannical Ambition. In reality, the rankings between these 3 guilds were a messy battle. The placings between them constantly shifted. For all of these big guilds, who had failed in the competition for the dungeon records, this Christmas event was a huge chance for them to prove themselves. This competition this time seemed to be unrelated to Yi Shu. Yi Shu glanced at it for a second and then stopped paying attention to it. Chapter 268, Deviously Stealing Monsters. The players continued to work hastily at their task. As for the leaderboards, the majority of players looked at it with 1/3 envy, 1/3 jealousy and 1/3 pain. The players on the leaderboards were definitely earning more presents and rewards than the other players. In addition, whether it was due to skill or luck, these players would only continue to grow stronger with more presents, making others feel truly helpless at their situation. The players who were on the leaderboards followed their placing carefully in order to maintain it or rise further. Only by doing this long-term would they gradually begin to guarantee their spots. Being able to hunt Christmas thieves in Sin City was undoubtedly a reflection of a player's skill. Tang Ru continued to work hard and her ranking began to gradually rise as a result. Finally, when some of the luckier players, who had found Christmas thieves consecutively, began to run out of luck, they gradually started falling off as players, who relied on their skill, such as Tang Ru, steadily pushed ahead. 774. 767. 751. 749. Every time Tang Ru killed a Christmas thief, the number of points she earned increased and her name would go up a few rankings. And just like this, Tang Ru continued advancing step by step, improving her spirit with each step. Her left hand tapped her keyboard, while her right hand held her mouse and her 2 eyes stared intently at the screen, unwilling to shift away for even a single second. Leaderboards possessed this type of mysterious attractive force. Another one. Tang Ru was getting more and more used to Sin City's atmosphere and was also getting better and better at finding targets while having a hazy field of vision. Out in the distance, amidst the rain and fog, a blurry figure could be seen. Tang Ru determined that it was a Christmas thief and immediately rushed towards it. At the same time, another figure flashed out from the other side of the street, sprinting towards the same Christmas thief. In the figure's hands was a bright lightsaber that stood out in the rain. Tang Ru saw the figure and immediately understood the person's intent. After being in Sin City for so long, she had seen many other players, but this was the first time she had set her eyes on the same target as another player. Tang Ru obviously wouldn't back down. She chose the shortest route to the Christmas thief and sprinted towards it. A Sin City resident that she had been planning to avoid was alerted. She didn't have the time to bother being careful. The Sin City resident naturally wouldn't be nice to Tang Ru. Soft Mist's figure dashed past his eyes as the resident pounced forward coldly with a knife in his hands. The opposing Blade Master also noticed the incoming battle mage. The majority of the players who were currently in Sin City were veterans in glory and were far more experienced than Tang Ru. Judging from the distance between the two to the Christmas thief, the Blade Master determined that he was one step faster than her. Just as he thought that he had won, he saw that the battle mage had alerted the monster, which made him feel even happier, reinforcing his confidence in snatching this Christmas thief. When the resident closed in, Tang Ru didn't hesitate. Her right hand swiped her mouse and Soft Mist sent a sky strike, launching the resident into the air. Soft Mist stepped sideways and then used a falling flower palm. The force from the palm scattered the rain, creating a ripple. It all looked very tyrannical. Not good. When the Blade Master saw the direction of the palm, he panicked. The battle mage had unexpectedly used the monster to profit from the disaster. She had originally been a bit slower, but now with the falling flower palm, the resident had accurately crashed into the Christmas thief. After the Christmas thief climbed up, the thief nimbly ran towards Soft Mist. The Blade Master quietly watched and could only curse out loud. Tang Ru heard the player curse, but ignored him. Soft Mist went forward and met with the Christmas thief and that resident. It was a 1v2, but Tang Ru wasn't scared. She had killed quite a few Christmas thieves and residents already. Attacking two of them at the same time wasn't too difficult for her, which was why she wasn't afraid to alert the resident and use it to her advantage. The Blade Master originally planned to get ready to leave. However, at this moment, the two players moved a bit closer to one another, allowing him to see the blurry ID that had been hidden by the mist and rain. Soft Mist. Seeing this ID, the Blade Master halted. He put his sword next to him as the Blade Master quietly watched Soft Mist fight. Level 31. The Blade Master looked up the ID and confirmed Soft Mist's level. At this level, she would suffer from level suppression in Sin City. Yet, it looked as if the 1v2 was going smoothly, confirming Soft Mist's strength. The Blade Master couldn't deny that she deserved to be a member of Lord Grimm's dungeon team. The Blade Master thought to himself for a bit and then quietly left. Tang Ru had noticed the player watching her and was prepared for a fight. But after seeing the player leave, she relaxed. She guessed that the player was thinking about whether or not she was able to deal with both a Christmas thief and a monster at the same time. If she wasn't capable of doing so, then he would have picked up the scraps. But after seeing that the situation wasn't going to happen, he naturally left. This type of thinking wasn't anything noble, but it was at least better than directly killing the opposing player and forcefully stealing the monster. Tang Ru clearly wasn't having any trouble with the two monsters if she still had the ability to think about other things. After collecting her thoughts, she focused on the fighting. But to her surprise, the Blade Master returned not long after and was running like crazy, too. Behind him were 10 or so Sin City residents. With around 10 people running along the wet ground, the footsteps were able to be heard clearly. Tang Ru heard the noise so turned her head to look and saw that the guy was running towards her with the mob of monsters. Tang Ru stopped smiling. This guy was in the same situation as she was before. Even though she sympathized with him, Tang Ru couldn't do anything to help. She was afraid of this, too. In the blink of an eye, the person reached her. Tang Ru looked closer and was suddenly startled. Wind-following sword. Wasn't this ID the same as that Blade Master she had just seen? He had only just run off, so why did he suddenly gather so many monsters? That wasn't normal, right? Even if Tang Ru was inexperienced, she could still tell that something wasn't right. Just as she brought up her guard, this time, wind-following sword wasn't as nice and a sword wind sliced towards her. A sword light flashed amidst the dusky rain and fog. The sword wind carried the rain, beautifully soaring towards soft mist. It looked good, but it didn't make her feel good. Tang Ru immediately had soft mist dodge to the side, but the thief and resident didn't care about her situation and continued to attack. Sword light flashed once again. Wind following sword used a sword draw and then followed up with a triple slash to close in. In that instant, 3 opponents were attacking her, but Tang Ru didn't panic. She dodged to the side and sent out a sky strike. Wind following sword was a bit slow. He wasn't able to dodge the attack in time and was launched into the air, not high up, but still knocked up. Tang Ru wasn't polite in the slightest and followed up quickly with a falling flower palm. Palm hit. Wind following sword was hit directly by the falling flower palm and was sent flying backwards. Tang Ru suddenly cried out, "Oh, no. Ha 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 ha, girl, you really like using this trick." Wind following sword wasn't acting like the loser and was unexpectedly laughing. His body flew and crashed into the giant mob of Sin City residents. These residents had grouped together. His crash was even more thorough than Su Mucheng's laser rifle. Every single resident was hit. And their aggro counted towards soft mist. Against a devious opponent, Tang Ru's lack of experience had finally cost her. Chapter 269, It's Not That Simple. The 10 or so Sin City residents climbed up from the ground, their gazes were all directed towards soft mist. They hissed and then swarmed forward. Wind following sword slowly got up at this moment. On top of his head was a word bubble with an evil, smiley face in it. Tang Ru felt extremely disdainful of this player. This time, she was actually angry. She hadn't been this angry even when the big guilds had ambushed her. She didn't say anything and then suddenly pounced directly towards the 10 residents. However, her scarlet moon lance was pointed towards the peaceful wind following sword. Wind following sword was startled by Tang Ru's manner, but after seeing the 10 residents between them, he immediately calmed down. This sister. It's hard to even say if she'd be able to run away from these monsters, yet she actually advanced forward instead of retreating. It looked very silly. Wind following sword didn't move and watched soft mist clash with the residents. He wasn't planning on leaving. He wanted that Christmas thief behind soft mist. Of course, if he also killed off soft mist, then that'd be good, too. Soft mist once again used a falling flower palm. Her palm hit the center of the mob and the energy rippled through, spreading out in a series of crashing explosions. It was as if a bomb had been set off inside the mob. The monsters were immediately split up and sent into a state of confusion. Wind following sword looked and saw that soft mist was better than he had originally thought. But even though the falling flower palm had been done well, if she wanted to directly charge forward, it wouldn't be that simple. Because of the level suppression, falling flower palm's blow-away effect would be greatly weakened. The palm really had been executed beautifully, but the effects didn't reach Tang Ru's expectations. The distance that the monsters were blown away wasn't far enough. Tang Ru was just about to have soft mist charge forward and attack wind following sword, but 2 of the residents that hadn't been blown away suddenly pounced towards her. Wind following sword laughed coldly. In this type of situation, he didn't think that soft mist would dare to battle with these 2 residents. If she did, the other residents would surround her, and by that point, even if she were given wings, she'd have difficulty escaping. In the end, soft mist swung her scarlet moon lance and actually attacked the 2 residents. Wind following sword stared blankly and then sneered, "Idiot." The 2 residents were launched into the sky by the sky strike. Closely following, soft mist extended her hands and stabbed forward at one of them with a dragon tooth, sending one of them towards wind following sword. Soft mist stepped forward, stabbed forward again, picking up the other resident, and threw it in a half circle. That resident was thrown behind her, causing a shockwave, knocking the monsters that had just gotten up back to the ground. This time, wind following sword was truly shocked. Under the level suppression, Sky Strike's knock-up effect wouldn't be too high, but in that short amount of time, Soft Mist had actually completed a dragon tooth and a circle swing, with extreme accuracy as well. That hand speed made Wind Following Sword re-evaluate her. Wind Following Sword dodged the resident, but then saw a fire chaser fly towards him and strike the resident. The fire chaser exploded and wind-following sword was caught in the explosion. Fire chasers did area of effect damage. She had even sent out a fire chaser at that moment? She had controlled it perfectly as well to catch both of them in the explosion. It definitely wasn't a coincidence. This girl. Her mechanics were incredible. Wind-following sword was thinking on turning, when soft mist closed in. Her scarlet moon lance sliced towards him as if it were about to cut him into a meat patty. But wind-following sword wouldn't be beaten as easily as those monsters. He sidestepped and countered with his own attack. He then jumped backwards twice, causing soft mist's next 2 stabs to hit nothing but air. Tang Ru was startled. For the competitive her, this type of situation excited her. Whether it was her hand speed or her microing, they would all be better than normal when she was in battle. Her double stab had been performed quite quickly, but the opponent had unexpectedly anticipated it and jumped backwards. Wind-following sword chuckled and returned with an upward slash. Tang Ru jumped back without thinking. Pow! The Christmas thief had caught up and whacked her. The thief's aggro was still on soft mist's body. The thief wasn't planning on running. At this moment, Sin City's residents had climbed up and pounced forward. But even in this situation, Tang Ru was even more intent on carrying out her program than those NPCs and continued to attack wind-following sword. Her lance pricked up with a sky strike, which was once again easily dodged by wind-following sword. She turned and her left hand struck. A tyrannical falling flower palm shot forward, but unfortunately missed. Missed? Why can't I hit him? Tang Ru didn't feel like there were any problems with her playing, but the opponent seemed to always be able to predict her moves. Under this tense situation, Tang Ru was unable to calm down. The only thought in her head was to fight. Even if she was going to end up being surrounded by the monsters, she would drag that evil guy to hell with her. With her fighting spirit risen, she fiercely attacked. This time, she only used normal attacks. Tang Ru's hands moved even faster than before, sacrificing precision to do so. All she knew was that her attacks were headed in the general direction towards wind-following sword. Even if she died, she was going to kill that guy. Stab, slash, slice. These basic attacks brought about an unexpected effect. Wind-following sword wasn't as calm as before. The 3 consecutive attacks had thrown him off guard. He failed to dodge the slice, which hit his waist, causing his character to stagger to the side 2 steps. He didn't seem to be having as easy of a time dodging as he had before. Tang Ru suddenly understood what was going on. Yi Shu had taught her about this before. Pay attention to the skills that were used. And that wind-following sword was using this method. Before this, Tang Ru had used a falling flower palm, sky strike, dragon tooth and circle swing in quick succession. After that, those 4 skills were on cooldown and the chasers would be shot out only when hitting the target. Finally, since Soft Mist was a level 31 battle mage, her only skill left was a double stab. Wind-following sword had calculated this, which was why he was able to easily predict the double stab. Soft Mist then used her skills one after the other once the skills went off cooldown, which wind-following wind predicted and dodged easily. It was because her hand speed was quick that the opponent could predict her moves so easily. The instant that she finished all her skills, she would use them again as soon as they could be used. This wind-following sword wasn't so simple either. Tang Ru had obviously practiced this before under Yi Shu's guidance, but even though the theory was simple, doing it in practice wasn't. Tang Ru was still learning to pay attention to her own skills' cooldowns and was far from being able to pay attention to the opponent's skill usage and cooldowns. But this wind-following sword, even if it was only because Soft Mist only had a few skills and was predictable, was still able to do something that Tang Ru wasn't able to. But this time, Tang Ru's quick normal attacks finally made it so that he was unable to keep up. Normal attacks didn't have cooldowns, so wind-following sword had no way of predicting them. And since Tang Ru was faster than he had no way of dealing with them. He hadn't yet stabilized himself, when a scarlet light flashed in front of him again. Soft Mist's sky strike had struck again. This time, wind-following sword wasn't able to dodge and was launched into the air. Circle swing. The lance stabbed through wind-following sword and then threw him towards the ground. The monsters that were now surrounding her were knocked to the ground by the following shockwave. However, Tang Ru wasn't able to completely protect herself from every direction. During that time, she had also been hit by the monsters. Chapter 270, Battle Spirit. Tang Ru finally hit Wind Following Sword, but the price in doing so had been extremely high. During that time, the monsters were hitting her, dropping her health by a third. Unfortunately, due to the level suppression, the damage that she took was also greater. In comparison, the damage that she had inflicted onto Wind Following Sword was not even close to that high. It definitely wouldn't be good for her if they continued to exchange blows like this. Even though it was a fact that battle mages were a part of the mage class, they had a strength growth rate of 3.5, which was the same as blade masters. However, for their defense, they maintain the same value, a weak 2.5 vitality growth rate, just like the other mage classes. And for their equipment, battle mages were proficient with leather armor, while blade masters were proficient with light armor. Battle mages also had weaker defenses. Battle mages had the disadvantage in vitality and defense. How could battle mages trade blows with blade masters? Even more so, Wind Following Sword's level was higher than hers and Soft Mist was the only opponent he had faced. On the other hand, Soft Mist also had the 10 residents, as well as the mighty Christmas Thief, as opponents. It was extremely difficult, but compared to beating Yi Shu, Tang Ru felt that it was still doable. Soft Mist brandished her lance and guarded against the monsters. She fished out a health pod and downed it. In an endurance battle, you had to grasp the timing for when to drink potions. As soon as your health and mana began to fall, you had to start paying attention to them. The things Yi Shu had taught her were now appearing clearly in her mind. Tang Ru knew how difficult this battle would be, so she focused her attention on the battle. Dragon Tooth. Her Scarlet Moon lance stabbed forward, brushing past the 2 residents, and headed directly towards Wind Following Sword, who hastily dodged it. Soft Mist then followed up with a Falling Flower Palm. The monsters ahead were blown away, blocking Wind Following Sword's left and right escape routes. Wind Following Sword immediately jumped into the air and allowed the flying monsters to pass through. Seeing that there was a huge opening in Soft Mist's defenses right now, Wind Following Sword grabbed his sword and, just as he was about to use a Falling Light Blade, he suddenly changed his mind and cancelled it. The skill hadn't come out, but since he had already activated it, the skill went cooldown. It looked like a waste, but in a high-skill battle, faking an attack was common. Wind Following Sword didn't have any intentions of faking an attack. When he landed on the ground, he laughed coldly. "Are you trying to trick me? Girl, you're still too naive." The Falling Light Blade might have hit Soft Mist, but the shockwave would have also hit the surrounding monsters. At that moment, Wind Following Sword had figured out Tang Ru's intent, to trick him into aggroing those monsters. "You go and play with them on your own," Wind Following Sword laughed. He used a triple slash to retreat far away. Seeing that Wind Following Sword hadn't been duped, Tang Ru's plan fell through. After seeing him run away, she became even more aware that the situation she was in wasn't looking good. That guy was too shrewd. Compared to how he played, she really was too simple. Perhaps the only way for her to win is to charge forward without looking back. Soft Mist's neutral chasers provided her with a movement speed buff and the fire chasers buffed her strength. Her condition flourished as she rushed towards Wind Following Sword. Wind Following Sword had pretty much figured out her plan. He walked around and decided that he wouldn't tangle around with her. Soft Mist had the advantage in movement speed, but Wind Following Sword was able to walk around freely, while she had to deal with the monsters. She was able to hit Wind Following Sword sometimes, but she had no way of following up on it. If she ignored the pursuing monsters, she would definitely be the first to fall. They continued to run around like this and Wind Following Sword's health slowly whittled away. However, Wind Following Sword didn't panic. He took out a health potion and downed it right in front of Soft Mist and looked at her as if he were the emperor. How to fight in a prolonged battle was a course that every expert needed to take. Wind Following Sword clearly knew about this. At this moment, he had calmly drank a potion, and arrogantly too. He had naturally wanted Tang Ru to lose hope. Wind Following Sword hadn't been paying attention to the time. When he checked, he suddenly jumped up in fright. He had been messing around with Soft Mist for 20 minutes already. Soft Mist had spent 20 minutes being chased by monsters, who were 6 to 8 levels higher, while chasing him. This girl was a bit too fierce. Wind Following Sword arrogantly drank another potion. As his opponent chased after him, she also drank a potion. She didn't waver and hadn't admitted defeat yet. This type of person could be knocked down, beaten, and killed. However, it didn't look as if it were possible to make her give up. You really do possess skill, Wind Following Sword began speaking, but this truly is too boring. Tang Ru ignored him and continued to have Soft Mist rush forward. Wind Following Sword continued to dodge her attacks. Watch my sword, Wind Following Sword suddenly shouted. Soft Mist immediately halted. Ha 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 ha, I was just playing with you, Wind Following Sword laughed, as if he was looking for some fun in something that was very boring. After 20 minutes of playing like this, Tang Ru's condition finally seemed to be declining. Her continuous charging forward without looking back momentum was affected and the monsters had caught up with her. It didn't look as if she possessed the ability to deal with Wind Following Sword anymore. F***ck, Wind Following Sword was finally able to stand still and relax. If you knew this was going to happen, why'd you have to dawdle around? Hurry up and die already. You're wasting my time, Wind Following Sword shouted at the struggling Soft Mist. Blade Masters really liked spouting nonsense. Tang Ru, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly shouted. Her voice sounds quite nice. That was the first thought that appeared in Wind Following Sword's mind. But, he could also hear the coldness and murderous intent in her voice. To be toyed around like this, it'd be weird if she wasn't angry. Aren't you bored of talking so much? Accompanying this was a loud explosion. A lightning bolt crashed down from Sin City's skies. The monsters that were surrounding Soft Mist were suddenly blown away. A falling flower palm, along with a coincidental thunder boom, made the scene look extremely impressive. Wind Following Sword suddenly felt weird. Under the level suppression, why was her falling flower palm able to have such an effect? He didn't have the time to think carefully because Soft Mist had already pounced forward towards him. You really are stubborn. Wind Following Sword sounded a bit helpless, but his sword wasn't. A sword draw sliced through the air. The girl had fought against the monsters for quite a while, so him doing some damage wouldn't aggro the monsters. Soft Mist jumped into the air and dodged the sword slash. Dragon Tooth. Soft Mist immediately stabbed forward. Wind Following Sword calmly jumped backwards. Pow! He was hit. What? Wind Following Sword was astonished. How did that attack hit? Did her attack speed increase? He didn't have the time to think about this problem. Wind Following Sword was suddenly in a stunned state. He couldn't help but notice that his health was dropping a bit too fast. It was just a dragon tooth. How did it do so much damage? Another scarlet light flashed. What? Is it actually faster? Wind Following Sword thought as he was launched into the air. The following two stabs directly pierced through him. Double stab. He flew outwards, but the third stab grabbed him in midair and swung him around. That can't be right. Why is my health dropping so quickly? Wind Following Sword began to panic. Dragon Tooth, Sky Strike, Double Stab. These three moves had dropped his health bar to half. As he was swung around in the air, Wind Following Sword glanced at Soft Mist's body. A light, golden glow surrounded her body. He hadn't noticed before because of the rain. Wind Following Sword was immediately stunned. He, who was experienced, obviously recognized this skill. It was the Battle Mage's level 50 awakening skill, Battle Spirit. How could this skill appear now?